Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Before we start with our today's analysis, we have two important announcements. The first is in reference to the free IAS workshop, which will be conducted exclusively on a Byjus Exam Prep application. This session will be handled by Rohit Kumar Shah on 15th of October at 6 p.m. So the agenda for this free IAS workshop would be 6 steps to succeed in UPSC CSE. What are you waiting for? Download the Byjus Exam Prep application and attend this free IAS workshop. The second announcement is in reference to the Byjus IAS monthly current affairs magazine. There are a lot of students who have a lot of concerns and dilemma whether they should be reading Kurukshetra, Down to Earth, Yojana, Science Reporter, so on and so forth. What if I tell you all these sources will be part of the Byjus Exam Preps monthly magazine? So all that you have to do is download our magazine so that you get all the 6 sources in one single magazine. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says the court and the problem with its collegium. This article here is speaking about the concerns that are associated with the collegium. Let us try and understand what is the author trying to convey. When it comes to the Supreme Court of India, we have the collegium system. It is the collegium system which is formed by the Chief Justice of India and the 4 senior-most judges. It is these people who ultimately select names for the appointment to the Supreme Court as well as to the High Court. What is the recent incident that we happened? We have a recent instance where the Supreme Court Collegium cleared Bombay High Court CJ Justice Deepankar Datta's name for appointment as Supreme Court judge in its September 26 meeting and sent recommendations to the centre. For 11 other names in consideration for 4 Supreme Court posts, Collegium members wanted to evaluate their merits by looking into their judgments. So the meet was postponed to September 30th. However, meeting could not take place as Justices D.Y. Chandrachud and Hima Kohli were busy clearing pending legal matters as it was the last day before Dussehra break. So what does the Chief Justice of India do? Chief Justice of India then decided to seek not for the names of 4 Supreme Court judges by circulating the proposal. This was strongly objected to in writing by Justice Chandrachud and S.A. Nazir on October 1. They said appointments to the highest court and constitutional posts shouldn't be done through the circulation of a letter, but instead they should happen by the physical deliberations. So what is the issue here? Whenever there is appointment, the appointment procedures will basically include the recommendation of the Chief Justice of India and 4 senior-most judges. Since 2 judges were not able to join the meeting, we have the Chief Justice of India who sends a letter to all the justices. These justices, 2 of them returned their recommendations, but the other 2 were not happy with this particular letter sent by the Chief Justice of India. So they go on to say that whenever we are making an appointment to the Supreme Court of India, we have to physically deliberate. We have to meet up in person. We have to discuss the pros and cons of that particular judge and ultimately come to a conclusion. But in this case, what has happened? Since it was sent by the letter, this cannot be accepted, said 2 judges amongst the collegium. This is where the author goes on to say that this whole issue of collegium is not working properly when it comes to the Supreme Court of India. Why? That is because had it been any other institution which was appointing the judges of the Supreme Court, there would have been lot of hue and cry. But because it is a collegium, because there is misunderstanding within the collegium, there is not much hue and cry, and ultimately no one is criticizing the Supreme Court of India, says the author. Added to it, the author also goes on to say, when it comes to Supreme Court of India, it has been hearing a lot of cases on the virtual mode. Instead of them meeting in person, they could have gone to the virtual mode. They could have also discussed as well. Even if that is not an option, they could have shifted it to the next day. They could have met up, deliberated, discussed the pros and cons of that particular judge who is supposed to be appointed to the Supreme Court of India. But instead of doing all this, they have exchanged barbs, which is not right, says this author. So the author goes on to say that there is a whole question mark when it comes to the appointment proceedings, when it comes to the collegium system. What is this collegium? What are the three landmark judgments when it comes to the collegium? First judge's case, second judge's case, third judge's case has been explained in one of our knowledge series video. Kindly look into it. What are we going to discuss today? It will be only with respect to the concerns. So what are the concerns voiced by the author? The first is in reference to the appointment procedure itself. What does the constitution speak about? When you look into the original constitution, it was only the president who was supposed to appoint the judges to the Supreme Court of India, but then this consultation was also taken as the recommendation. They created a new word called as collegium. This happens to be a judicial innovation. While the original constitution did not have all of this, the Supreme Court interpreted this happens to be one of the systems where the judiciary is appointing its own members. This system is not present in any other country, and ultimately the check on the collegium is violating, says the author. When it comes to every other institution, there is a check on the executive, there is a check on the legislature, but there is no check in the appointment procedure. When it comes to the collegium, it is the judiciary which is appointing its own members. That is the first major problem, says the author. The second major problem is with respect to the NJAC. In order to bring transparency and accountability within the appointments to the judiciary, we had the government which had come up with the National Judicial Appointments Commission. This National Judicial Appointments Commission was declared as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of India. So the author in this particular case goes on to say that when it comes to the NJAC, the commission would have consisted of following 6 persons. Who are these? Chief Justice of India as the chairperson, two other senior judges of the Supreme Court next to the Chief Justice of India, the Union Minister of Law and Justice, and two eminent persons. What did the Supreme Court of India say? The Supreme Court of India said that this is an executive interference in the appointment of the judiciary, and at the same time, since there are three people outside judiciary, they may also hold the sway as well, and there are two eminent persons as well. These people, if they are making appointments to the judiciary, in that case it is violating judicial independence, said the Supreme Court of India. So who are these eminent persons? These eminent persons would have been nominated by a committee consisting of Chief Justice of India, Prime Minister of India, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha. If there is no leader, in that case, whichever party has the largest number of MPs, such a leading party and its leader could have been selected as part of this committee. Conditions for the eminent persons: the two eminent persons, one person would be from the scheduled caste or scheduled tribes or OBC or minority community or a woman. The eminent persons shall be nominated for a period of 3 years and shall not be eligible for the renomination. So what is the author trying to convey? The author says that the Supreme Court felt that the eminent persons appointed could influence the appointment procedure. So what could the Supreme Court could have done? Instead of two, they could have tweaked it, asked the legislature to make this as one single person. So there would be three people from the judiciary. They would have still had the advantage. The judiciary is not ready to bend down. The judiciary is not able to make any changes for its own accountability and transparency, and that is the second major concern. So NJAC was supposed to be a landmark one, but this was also declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of India. Instead of declaring completely unconstitutional, they could have at least asked the legislature to include just one eminent person so that the judiciary could have had an upper hand. That also did not work, and that is the major problem, says this author. The third is in reference to the appointment of the Supreme Court judges. We have Article 124 of 3, which says a person shall not be qualified for appointment as a judge of the Supreme Court unless he is a citizen of India, has been for at least 5 years as a judge of High Court or two or more such courts in the succession, has been for at least 10 years an advocate of a High Court or two or more such courts in succession, is, in the opinion of a president, a distinguished jurist. What is happening of late? Whenever the Supreme Court is appointing or select one of the persons to the bench, that is to become a judge. He is being selected because he's worked for the High Court. He happens to be an eminent advocate, but then in this particular backdrop, there is a third condition called as jurist who happens to have been contributed to law. Such persons are not even being considered by the Supreme Court of India. There has been no person till date who's been appointed as the judge of the Supreme Court of India who has been a jurist. Why not make use of it is another question that the author is trying to ask the collegium. So the author says that as of now, there is not much of transparency and accountability of the collegium to the executive and to the country. As a result, what we require is a transparent process for the appointment when it comes to the collegium system. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section, can a jurist be appointed as the High Court judge? Please put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next article. This article says the war against illegal goods as India's fight. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. India's wholesale inflation rate has been declining since July this year but has remained in double digits since April 2021. Last month, the inflation rate was recorded at 12.41% from 13.93% in July. Whenever there is inflation, people would not generally want to buy expensive items, expensive products. So what do they choose? They choose for an alternative one which is comparatively cheaper. When we speak about cheaper goods, one country that we have to speak is China. China has a manufacturing hub which is able to come up with multiple products and is also able to export cheaper products to another country. This is become a major problem for our country because we are majorly a service oriented country. We are not a manufacturing hub. So in case there are Chinese products that are coming into India, they are offering at a cheaper price which Indian manufacturers are not able to. That is when the domestic manufacturing suffers. This is one part. Let's look at another angle to it. Let's say for example, we are looking for cheaper products. These cheaper products, if it comes through the official line, what would happen? There would be taxations that would be paid. It will also create livelihood means and mechanisms as well. What if this particular product that is coming from some other country does not come through the legal ways but happens to come through smuggling or illegal trade? Whenever there is a product coming through the illegal channels, in that case, there is a lot of issues concerning the country. What exactly happens? If it is a smuggled good, if it happens to be an illegal good, in that case, the government will not be getting the taxes and ultimately the money would not go to the state exchequer. So this article currently goes on to say that there has been a thriving business of smuggling booming in our country. Illegal goods enter our country, and as a result, what we have to do is take measures to overcome this particular issue. Let's look into the statistics. According to the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries Committee Against Smuggling and Counterfeiting Activities Destroying the Economy, one of the best known data sources for information on smuggling, the illicit market is thriving in 5 key Indian industries. Which are these industries? This includes mobile phones, fast moving consumer goods, household and personal goods, FMCG packaged food, tobacco products and alcoholic beverages. The size of the illicit market in these industries was valued at 2,60,094 crores in the year 2019 and 20. And there is another report as well. This report is called as the Global Illicit Trade Environment Index. What is this index all about? This happens to be published by Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade, and this is also produced by the Economic Intelligence Unit. They come up with the report in the year 2018. What is this report all about? What is this index all about? What are the various regulatory measures that a particular country has taken to prevent illicit trade in that country? Let's say for example, we have India. India has taken, let's say, a measure A, it has taken a measure B, or it has taken a measure C. it has come up with laws, it has come up with authorities to establish and make sure that illicit trade does not happen in India. So basically, the Global Illicit Trade Environment Index will identify what are the measures taken by that country and how is it able to regulate the illicit trade. If it is good, ranking will be provided. If it is bad, ranking will be provided. So it will inform the government about the effectiveness, about the efforts taken with respect to the illicit trade. It will try to establish policy priorities and identify areas that requires greater attention from that particular country so that this country is able to bring about the changes to prevent illicit trade. According to this report, they look at four parameters. One is government policy, second is supply and demand, third is custom environment, fourth is transparency and trade. In relation to these four elements, India ranks in the third quartile of the 82 countries covered in the index. It ranks 35 in terms of the transparency trade. So India, though it has some regulatory measures, it has institutions to look into illegal trade, prevent them, it is not working that efficiently according to this particular report. So the author in this particular case goes on to say that since we have laws, we have authorities, but still we are not able to prevent illicit trade. As a result, the taxes that is supposed to have been paid to the government is not being paid. As a result, what we are witnessing is large scale loss to the government. The author substantiates this with the help of some statistics. The Cascade report estimates that unlawful trade in the industries mentioned above results in a total estimated legitimate employment loss of 15.96 lakhs. Had this manufacturing happened in India, this would have given boost to the employment, but because it is happening via smuggling through an illegal channel, the manufacturing base is not working efficiently in India. So number of people who suffer in terms of the employment is about 15.96 lakh people. The combined FMCG industry, household and personal goods, packaged foods, due to its illicit market size accounts for about 68% of the job losses. The estimated tax loss to the government due to the illicit goods in these industries have been estimated to about 58,521 crores. The report further reveals that the two highly regulated and taxed industries, tobacco products and alcoholic beverages, account for 49% of the overall tax loss to the government. It is in this particular backdrop the author goes on to say that we have to take certain measures so that this smuggling and illicit trade can be brought to an end or kept a check off. As of now, we have the government of India which has taken measures of self-reliance, Atmanirbharata, so on and so forth, but this is not enough. So what we have to do is rationalize taxes and promote local brands. What do we mean by it? As of now, let's say we have a manufacturing company. This manufacturing company is provided some tax incentives, it is given tax holidays, and it is also providing some of the other measures by the government of India. But when it comes to countries like China, when it comes to other developed countries as well, they provide a lot of subsidies to these manufacturing companies, and at the same time they do not bar these companies from even dumping some of the products to other countries. So if we have to withstand it, what the government of India has to do is it also has to provide subsidies and it also has to provide incentives so that this manufacturing company is also able to release the product in India at a cheaper price. As of now, people are opting for a cheaper price product. That is because their countries are giving what is called as subsidies, and that is why their products are cheaper. If India is able to provide cheaper products because India is providing subsidies, even we will have the products which are cheaper in India is the first thing. The second is allowing global brands to manufacture in India. What do we mean by it? Let's say for example, we have one of the companies, let's say Apple. Apple would tie up with any other local company so that this local company is manufacturing some of the phones in India. So the author says India will have to attract these international companies so that they establish their manufacturing in India, and at the same time whenever they have established a product product, that product should also be available cheaper in India. So it is for the government to ensure that permit Raj, license Raj, bureaucracy issue, red tape issue is everything addressed by the government of India and its personnel. The third is to make sure the use of technology in enforcement. As of now, we do have the laws, we do have the authorities, but when it comes to the actual implementation, it is only on the paper, not in terms of reality. So the author says, let's make use of artificial intelligence, let's make use of blockchain and location technology, and in case there are any illegal goods, such should be seized immediately, and ultimately this whole process of smuggling and illegal trade should be completely rooted out, says the author. So in order to overcome all these issues, we have to create an awareness, we have to make sure that people boycott on their own, for which the government of India and the respective states are also responsible to bring awareness about such products, is what we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says China's Wolf Warrior era. The article here is speaking about how China conducts its activities. What is the meaning of Wolf Warrior? China has something called as the Wolf Warrior diplomacy. What is it? When you look at the affairs of China, let's say in the 1950s or in the 1960s, most of the Chinese diplomats used to keep a low profile. They used to be very cautious. They used to not be assertive as well. They were very moderate in their response. They did not be very aggressive in their response. That was the historical or the traditional China. But recently, what they have shifted to is called as the Wolf Warrior diplomacy. Basically, they are very assertive. They also exhibit aggressive character as well. They walk out of the international meetings. They even shout at the foreign counterparts. They even insult national leaders of another country as well. So this means that historically, China was more reserved. It was very cautious, but of late, it has become very assertive, says the Wolf Warrior diplomacy. This is the first part of the article. The second part of the article speaks about three important parameters. One is about the rise of China making use of the Belt and the Road Initiative. Second is with respect to the great power rivalry between China and United States of America. And third is its relationship with India. It also speaks about the Chinese Communist Congress. We will not be discussing it. There will be more articles in the near future we will take up elaborately with respect to the Chinese Congress. As of now, let's focus on these three important parameters. The first is in reference to the Belt and Road Initiative. The launch of the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013 was Mr. Xi's signature foreign policy initiative and a platform to stake China's claim to the global leadership. According to the estimates of Green Finance and Development Center at Shanghai Fudan University, over the past decade, the total value of projects and investments through the BRI stands at over 930 billion. But there is a concern with respect to this BRI. What is it? This happens to be what is called as the debt trap diplomacy. Wherever China has gone and invested in that particular country, they have invested in such assets that is not able to give any returns to the home country, the native country. As a result, there have been ample examples as well. Let's say, for example, in Sri Lanka, they have invested on the Hambantota port. There is lot of credit that the Sri Lankan government has taken. They have to repay back as well, and they are not able to repay back. Similarly, they have also invested in number of African countries. They have also invested in Pakistan as well. So they have invested on a particular project which is not given any returns. But despite giving no returns, these countries continue to rely on China primarily because of the huge pockets and the financial advantage that China has. As of now, Sri Lanka is going through an economic crisis. Pakistan is going through an economic crisis. So whenever countries have had an economic crisis, they are still banking on China to help them. That is how China is able to do it. In BRI, though it seems to be ambiguous, there is a lot of vagueness. It happens to be a nebulous project without clear idea of what infrastructure they are trying to provide. But because it has huge pockets, it is able to survive its relationship with other countries, is the first with respect to Belt and Road Initiative. The second is with respect to great power rivalry between China as well as United States of America. What China has been able to project right now is that United States of America is no more the principal guardian of the countries. Earlier, United States of America was the superpower. It had close nexus with all the countries as well. United States of America uttered something and every other country would listen to it as well. If United States of America sneezes, the world would also get cold are some of the comments made about United States of America. But now what China is doing, it is projecting itself as another country equal to United States of America. So it is constantly speaking to some of the Southeast Asian countries despite having issues in the South China Sea. It is also providing them money as well. It is also investing in their infrastructure projects as well. So it is projecting itself as an alternative to United States of America. If countries are not happy with United States of America's approach of dealing internationally via diplomacy, such countries are tilting towards China. For example, we have Iran, we also have Russia as well. Wherever United States of America has imposed sanctions, such countries have tilted in favor of China. So this is the second idea. The third is in reference to relationship with India. Whenever we speak about India and China's relationship, this is seen only through the lens of sovereignty. Whenever we speak about border issues, this has to be looked from the lens of dispute. But instead of looking it as dispute, they see it as a sovereignty issue, and ultimately what we have had is border skirmishes across the northeastern sector. We have had issues in Arunachal Pradesh, we have had issues in the Galvan Valley as well. So the author goes on to say that the peaceful rise that China was speaking about is no more peaceful, and it has become aggressive over a period of time because of the huge economic advantage that they have, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says no more indictment under section 66A of the IT Act, says the Supreme Court of India. We have the Supreme Court which has ordered states and their police forces to stop prosecuting free speech on social media under section 66A of the Information Technology Act, which was declared unconstitutional by the court in a judgment. Let us try and understand what is this article speaking about. We have one of the important sections under the IT Act, that is section 66A of the IT Act criminalizes the sending of offensive messages through a computer or other communication devices. Under this provision, any person who by means of a computer or communication device sends any information that is grossly offensive, false and meant for the purpose of causing annoyance, inconvenience, danger, obstruction, insult, criminal intimidation, enmity, hatred or ill will, meant to deceive or mislead the recipient about the origin of such messages, shall be punished with an imprisonment up to 3 years and with fine. So this particular section was being misused by number of police authorities in multiple states. To give you an example, there were two girls who were involved in an incident in Maharashtra. We had one of the noted politicians who had passed away. There was lot of traffic, so one of the girls had written something about this leader. The other girl had liked about this post, so the police officers did arrest them and put behind bars. As a result, there was a case that was filed in the Supreme Court of India. So the Supreme Court of India looked into this particular case as well, and in one of the landmark judgments in Shreya Singhal versus Union of India, it declared that this section 66A of the IT Act is unconstitutional. Why? Because it was violative of Article 19 of 1 of A. Article 19 of 1 of A basically speaks about freedom of speech and expression, but because this particular section under IT Act is being misused by the police officers, it was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of India. Despite the Supreme Court of India calling this section as unconstitutional, there are police officers who are still using this particular section and are even putting people behind bars. So what is the Supreme Court saying? The court found it distressing and terrible that police continue to pick out people and prosecute them under the draconian sections, regardless of the fact that the highest court in the country had struck down the law as vague and chilling. So it has directed all the director generals as well as the home secretaries and competent officers in union territories to instruct their entire police force in their respective states and union territories not to register any complaint of crime with respect to alleged violation of section 66A. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says a day to explore bear necessities. The article here is speaking about World Sloth Bear Day. Following India's appeals and efforts, we have the international union, that is the IUCN, which has declared October 12th as the World Sloth Bear Day. If you look into the IUCN status of sloth bear, it happens to be vulnerable in the IUCN red list, and sloth bears are endemic to the Indian subcontinent, and 90% of the species population is found in India. So if you look into India as well, it is listed under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and the species has the same level of protection as tigers, rhinos and elephants. What is the significance of declaring the World Sloth Bear Day? For October 12th, World Sloth Bear Day will provide an opportunity for highlighting the concerns of this particular species, and all the organizations, institutions, rescue centers, zoos across the world will now promote conservation of the sloth bear and their habitat, and they'll accelerate the research and also raise the public awareness about such species world over. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. There needs to be a better broad-based and transparent method of appointing senior judges to the High Court and the Supreme Court. Do you agree? Justify. Smuggling and counterfeiting are normally seen from the prism of loss of revenue to the exchequer. In the light of the statement, suggest the necessary steps the government needs to take. Please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.